Some stories are passed down as legends, others are whispered in fear, never to be spoken aloud again. But tonight, we're breaking the silence. These aren't just ghost stories, they're warnings, glimpses into the shadows that lurk just beyond the edge of reason. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and whatever you do, don't look behind you. Welcome to a night of true ghost stories you won't forget. Now that he's gone, I can say I never thought I would miss living in a haunted house. To be perfectly cliche, it all began one unassuming October evening. I was carving pumpkins with my mother and had set the top of mine back on the counter with mindful precision to prevent it from rolling onto the floor. I set off to the sink to rinse my hands, and as soon as I did, I heard a loud thud from behind me. The pumpkin top was no longer where I'd left it. It was now sitting smugly on the floor in front of the refrigerator. According to my mother's report, the second I turned my back, the top of the pumpkin skidded across the counter on its own and slammed forcefully against the refrigerator door. That's the night we met Clark. Clark was a private sort of spirit. My mother and I never felt threatened by him, but he didn't care much for us making his presence known. We talked about recent episodes with friends and family, but mostly excitedly relayed them between ourselves. After years of learning to live with him and his quirks, I headed to the library one afternoon to find a slice of solace. By pure serendipity, I met a friend of a friend among the stacks who invited me to the first meeting of her local paranormal investigative team. All I had to do to accept was pop into study room number 2 in a few minutes. Excitedly, I began to tell her that I actually lived down the road with an active spirit. His name is, just a second. I need to step out. I blanked. Distressed by this sudden amnesia, my face began to heat to boiling as I threw on my coat, pushed in the chair, rushed past the help desk, down the stairs, and out the front door. All the while, I tried over and over to remember his name. As the cool winter air hit my face, my memory returned in an instant. Clark. His name is Clark. I didn't go to the meeting, and I never called the acquaintance. I didn't feel stifled by Clark's possessiveness, rather protected. One day I had to be driven to work because despite turning the house upside down, my keys could not be found anywhere. Eventually they were located in the furthest corner of the hall closet on the floor. Perhaps Clark knew something we didn't, and was keeping me safe from an untimely fate. Once, when I was reading a book of ghost stories, I heard what sounded like fingernails dancing along the wall, almost playfully, right next to my head. I wasn't scared. I just smiled to myself and continued reading. Everything was fine until the altar incident. I was a practicing witch at the time and had a spread of small candles laid out as part of an ongoing ritual. I came home one day to find one of them not only out of place but teetering on the very edge of the table I kept them on. Around the same time, I came home to find a Hello Kitty doll lying in the middle of my altar, like some perverse sacrifice or glaring mockery of my practice. These incidents made me feel uneasy. They felt invasive, bordering on malicious. Clark no longer felt like a friend, if it even was Clark. Enter Diane. I had started exchanging emails with a local medium. Given that these events were occurring in a rural Maine town in the mid-2000s teens, she may have been the only one. Diane agreed to come visit our apartment to tell us what she sensed and whether it warranted a return visit for a proper investigation with all the bells and whistles. She described a hunched-over elderly woman with a tight knot of hair on the top of her head. My mother and I exchanged a look. Diane was, of course, describing Bess, the former landowner who had lived in the ground floor apartment and had passed away a few years ago. We were taken aback by this assessment because we were so confident it was always her husband Clark we were contending with. Diane continued to make her way through the house as we exchanged stories for insight. Nothing really stands out from the visit as I look back, except one occurrence after Diane's departure. The toilet seat was up. None of us had used the bathroom since Diane had arrived, and it was just the two of us in the house. To us, the message was clear. I'm not Bess. So, our spirit was a man. What made us so certain it was Clark in particular? A very easy question to answer. Shortly before the inaugural incident in October, the attic space in the adjacent apartment began intensive renovations. The attic space belonged to the ground floor apartment where Bess had lived. It's where she used to live with Clark. The attic space is also where Clark killed himself. I have always been rather skeptical of anything that cannot be proven, so the theory that ghosts will act out when the physical space they spent their last moments in is disturbed was nothing more than just that to me, a theory. In this case, it makes sense. A man of staunch Catholic faith when he was living, it is understandable that he would do things like smack pumpkin tops off tables and place toys onto pagan altars. Once, we even watched as a stack of books toppled themselves off the coffee table. Among those that went flying was one about ghosts, one about aliens, but the one that remained perfectly placed was one called Conversations with God. Clark's shenanigans continued to brighten the monotony of everyday living, and having him around became as normal as a dirty dish in the sink or a floor that needs sweeping. The only thing that changed after Diane's visit was me telling him firmly and often that he was not to mess with my things, and to my relief, he stopped. Eventually we moved. But whenever I drive by that old converted farmhouse on New Bridgeton Road, I wonder whether the current residents enjoy their Halloween season peacefully, or whether the man of the house ever gets unfairly blamed for leaving the toilet seat up. This happened to a close friend of mine. His wife is all about the great outdoors, camping and hiking, but my friend had never done any of that until he met her, so she decides they should spend a few days hiking in Joshua Tree National Park. He lets her handle all the details, and because they have a baby, she books their nights at the Pioneer Town Motel outside the park. They drive out there. For hiking, they have a baby chest pack, and all goes well until the last night. My friend is sleeping in the bed of their motel room. His wife is there too, with the baby between them. At some point, my friend wakes up because the baby has started to stir, so he holds her until she falls back into a deep sleep. But now he's awake and can't fall asleep right away. He's just lying there in the dark when something strange happens. There's an antler fixture on the ceiling with a few light bulbs attached to it. It's the main light in the room. It comes alive, but not as if the wall switch was flipped. It slowly lights up, becomes abnormally bright, then slowly dims until it turns off again. My friend is, of course, spooked. In his head, he's trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was a power surge or an electrical issue. The motel is old after all. Not too long after that, another light appears in the room. It's actually two pale blue balls of light hovering in the air at the foot of the bed. My friend's first impulse is to jump out of bed and turn on the room light, but he hesitates. He's seriously unsure if he's dreaming or hallucinating, and he doesn't want to wake his wife and baby, only to startle them and end up with a crying infant. So he pulls the sheet over his head, shuts his eyes, and pretends there's nothing there. But when he peeks, he can still see the glowing balls of light through the sheet. So what does he do? He closes his eyes again, and that's when he feels something on his feet, like a pressure pushing down. It slowly spreads to his legs, like someone pressing a wooden board against him. The pressure creeps all the way up to his chest, not in a painful way, but terrifying nonetheless. Then comes a hissing sound, like air being slowly released from a balloon. Still, my friend refuses to move. He convinces himself it's just a dream and lies still, eyes firmly shut. Then the sound and pressure disappear. The room is calm and quiet, and the presence is gone. My friend is just lying there, listening, now convinced he's fully awake, because his heart is pounding in his chest. Unable to sleep, he waits in the dark. Every now and then, he peers around the room with his phone flashlight, but nothing else happens. Finally, at the crack of dawn, he wakes his wife. He tells her he wants to get an early start and that they should leave as soon as possible. She agrees, and they drive away. The strange thing is, he never tells her what happened. He doesn't want to scare her or make her think he was hallucinating. He tells me all of this months later, while we're sitting in his backyard, a fire pit between us. I'm past the point of getting goosebumps. My friend isn't the lying type, and I believe him 100%. And I'm trying to make sense of it too. I go online and look up the Pioneer Town Motel. Decades ago, when it was used by Hollywood actors filming westerns nearby, a spurned lover committed suicide in one of the rooms. And on review sites, people say they've experienced strange things at the motel, especially in the room where she died. I asked my friend if that was the same room he stayed in, but he says he can't remember. It must have been. That's the only logical explanation. The motel was haunted, and my poor friend got a taste of the supernatural. Part 1. The Arrival. Emma, Jake, and their friends arrived at Black Hollow, an abandoned town whispered about in local legends. The setting sun cast eerie shadows over the decaying buildings. Determined to explore, they set up camp near the old church, its bell frozen in time. As darkness enveloped them, an unsettling chill filled the air. Whispers drifted through the wind, indistinguishable but chilling. Jake laughed it off, but Emma felt eyes watching. That night she dreamt of shadowy figures with hollow eyes staring from the woods. She woke abruptly, heart racing, to faint footsteps circling the tent. Part 2. The Discovery. Curiosity overpowered fear, and the group ventured into the church. Inside, dust swirled like spirits in the dim light. On the altar lay an ancient journal, its pages filled with cryptic symbols and frantic scribbles. They see you. They hunger. Suddenly, the door slammed shut. A cold whisper echoed, "Leave or stay forever." Jake tried forcing the door, but it wouldn't budge. Emma felt a cold hand brush her shoulder. No one was behind her. Part 3. The Descent. Searching for an escape, they discovered a trap door beneath the altar. Descending into darkness, their flashlights flickered. The basement walls were etched with claw marks. They heard faint sobs growing louder with each step. At the corridor's end stood a figure, its face a blur of shadows. It wailed, a sound that pierced their minds. The group scattered in panic. Emma found herself alone, the journal clutched tightly. The pages now bled with fresh ink. One must stay. Part 4. The Escape. Emma ran, guided by faint echoes of her friend's screams. She stumbled upon Jake, his eyes glazed, murmuring, "They're inside me." Terrified, she fled, finding the trapdoor miraculously open. Gasping in fresh air, she sprinted until the town disappeared behind her. In safety, she opened the journal, her own name written repeatedly, ink still wet. A whisper hissed from the trees, "You left them behind." Emma realized the haunting hadn't been left behind. It had followed her.
Thanks for tuning in. Watch another video if you dare.